The U.S. Chamber of Commerce is chiming in on the jobs debate, releasing its own proposal. Chamber of Commerce Chief Economist Martin Regalia joins us now from our Washington bureau. He says, quote, get this, it is time for the administration to junk what has clearly not worked and try something that will. Dr. Regalia, we thank you for joining us. Why don't you explain that, if you would, please?
Well, the policies that have been imposed in this administration, the bills that have been passed, health care, financial services reform, these haven't created any jobs. We came out of this recovery 2 years ago. We grew okay in the first year, a little over 3%, started to create a few jobs, and then pretty much lost our way and lost steam. And so now we're growing at 0.75%. And we're not creating any jobs at all. The number was 0 for August. If you look at the last 3 months, the average is about 35,000 jobs. That's not putting anybody back to work. That's not even employing the new entrants that are coming into the workforce every day.
Now, you actually have put forth a plan, I think it's a 6-point plan, and you've specified in job numbers 380,000 jobs, for example, if there were free trade agreements with several countries, 144,000 if there were offshore drilling. What are your top ways of creating jobs in this report that you just put out?
Well, what we wanted to do with this report was set a new direction, a direction that takes us in the right direction rather than in the wrong direction. And we outlined 6 different areas: trade, travel and tourism, some tax provisions, infrastructure spending, and other aspects of the economy where we can create jobs, permitting and reduction in regulations that create jobs without increasing the government debt and deficit, without just trying to throw more money at the problem, but actually do something that would open up and free up the free economy and the free enterprise sector to create more jobs and to get us going back to where we want to be.
Now, this is one of the first plans that I've actually seen. We keep talking about how no one has a plan. You've actually put forth a plan that says, here's how you create the following jobs. Now, how do you actually get people to sign on, or at least start talking about it, so that it goes from a piece of paper to something that actually has hope of passing?
Well, the first thing we did was to send the letter to Congress and the administration in hopes that they would take a look at it. We've had very good feedback from a number of people on Capitol Hill that we have talked to. These are not new provisions in any sense. We have been pushing for these things for quite some time. We just haven't seen any of them implemented or tried. We think it's time that we tried something that has a hope of working instead of continuing with policies that clearly haven't worked to date.
Now, in the case of the free trade, you said if you had free trade agreements with, I believe, South Korea, Colombia, and Panama, that would create 380,000 jobs, if I read your report correctly. So how politically palatable is a free trade agreement, and how realistic is it to think you could actually create those jobs?
Well, it's very realistic to think you can create the jobs. We've seen our foreign competitors pass agreements with these countries, and they're already benefiting from the exports that they are sending to these countries. So it's very realistic to expect the job creation to follow. How realistic is it to expect to see these free trade agreements pushed forward, passed, and the implementing language passed? I think it's getting better and better all the time. This is something that I think everyone on both sides of the aisle knows would work. There have been some, political areas that have been a little bit dicey, and therefore it's held these things up. But these are agreements that are already hammered out, that are already essentially done. They're sitting, languishing, if you will, in a desk somewhere in town here, and they need to be signed, implemented, and put to work. We'll see them work once we do that, and I think there's a growing chance that we will see that in the not-too-distant future.
Now, do you think any of your proposals will actually make it into President Obama's speech on Thursday night?
Well, I think that we're likely to see the trade issue brought up. We're likely to see the infrastructure issue brought up. Some of the other areas are likely to be somewhat more contentious.
And what are they specifically?
Excuse me?
And what are they specifically? What will be contentious?
Well, I mean, I think the 2 areas that we have outlined in the tax area, capital gains holiday, or capital gains, a reduced rate for corporate capital gains, and the repatriation issue is one that we've seen a lot of pushback on. On the repatriation issue specifically, we don't see any negative to it. It brings more money back home. Some of that money will go into investment. Some of it won't. Some of it will go into dividends. That's not a bad thing. Some of it may be used to buy back stock, to shore up stock prices, to repair corporate balance sheets. We don't see that as a bad thing. If these corporations use that money to dividend out and puts more money in the hands of American consumers, we don't see that as a bad thing. So when we look at this isn't just about, well, you've got to take this money, bring it back, and then put it into jobs. It's putting it into the economy. And I think one thing that this administration has missed is just how important overall economic growth is to job growth. When you don't grow at your long-run potential, you don't create jobs, you don't put people back to work. That's what we've seen happening. We've got to change that.
All right, Chief Economist Martin Regalia from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, we thank you for joining us. And by the way, if you're interested in seeing those specific proposals, you can go to the U.S. Chamber of Commerce website. They are all listed right there.